Council meeting in the Merrickville Community Center at 106 Reed Street, Merrickville at 6 p.m. Close enough for everybody, I trust, on Tuesday, March the 10th, 2020. So as I call the meeting to order, I will say to ask members of council if anyone has a disclosure of a pecuniary interest. And I see none noted. Thank you very much. And I will have a motion, please, for the approval of the agenda this evening. If I could have a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Mr. Helpney and Mr. Foster. Be it hereby resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Merrickville-Wolford does hereby approve the agenda of the special council meeting of March the 10th, 2020 as circulated. Are we all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much.
Your voice isn't coming through at all.
Thank you. And this is the motion to go to special meeting. And now, is this better?
That's better.
Oh, thank you. And Council, I do have a motion for us to move into a public meeting, and if I could have a mover and a seconder for that. Thank you, Mr. Foster. Seconded by Mr. Cameron. Be it hereby resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Merrickville-Wolford does hereby move to a public meeting under sections 51, 20, and 21 and Section 34 of the Planning Act as amended. All in favor? And that motion is carried as well. Thank you. And I will now go through the public meeting format for this evening for the consideration of a proposed draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment applications. United Counties File 07-T-19003 for lands described as part of lots 9 and 10, Concession A in the Village of Merrickville-Wolford. And I will call to order the public meeting at, what time everybody use?
6:04.
6:04 p.m. As required under sections 51:20 and 21 and 34:12 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990. This public meeting is being held for the purpose of providing the public with information and material related to the proposed draft plan of subdivision and draft zoning bylaw amendment. This is the public's opportunity to provide comments on the proposed development applications prior to the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville making a decision on the draft plan of subdivision and the Village Council making a decision on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment for lands described as parts of lots 9 and 10, Concession A, Village of Merrickville-Wolford. The proposed residential plan of subdivision consists of 17 townhouse blocks with a total of 83 units, one apartment block with 15 units, a public right-of-way, one block of land to be dedicated as parkland, and one block of land to be designated as stormwater management and open space. The lots are to be serviced by municipal water and sewer. The corresponding zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone a 3.6 hectare property to permit a proposed residential subdivision. Specifically, the zoning bylaw amendment would, 1, rezone a portion of the subject lands from Development D to Residential 2, Exception 3, R2-3, to permit the development of 17 townhouse blocks. All provisions of R2 zone will apply to R2-3 zone, except for lot frontage, which will be reduced from 6 meters to 5.5 meters. 2, rezone a portion of the subject lands from Development D to Residential 3, R3, to permit the development of a low-rise apartment building. 3, rezone a portion of the subject lands from Development D to Open Space O for the purpose of parkland and stormwater management practices. All other provisions of the Village's zoning bylaw 23-08 shall apply. I'll continue on my opening remarks and introductions. This public meeting is intended to provide the public with information and material related to the proposed subdivision, and to give the public an opportunity to make presentation to the Council regarding their thoughts of both the draft plan of subdivision and the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. It is the Council's responsibility to consider all the facts, deliberate on the merits of both applications. At any time during the proceedings, council members may ask questions through the chair to obtain information or seek clarification of statements. Those members of the public who wish to be heard on this matter will be asked to make a statement to the proposed draft of plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment. If the member of the public wishes to ask questions or seek clarification, they will ask their questions through the chair, who will direct the question to the appropriate person. Today's proceedings are as follows. Village staff will provide confirmation of how the notice of the public meeting was provided and comments received to date. The applicant will present their planning justification report, providing an overview of the nature of the application. Any person who has attended this public meeting will be provided an opportunity to comment on the proposed development applications. The applicant will be provided an opportunity to respond to comments made or questions asked by the public. Notice of appeal rights. Please be cautioned that the public only have a right of appeal on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application. Recent changes to the Provincial Planning Act under Bill 108 have removed the public's rights to appeal decisions on draft plans of subdivision. Regarding rights of appeal on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, only those persons who oral submissions at this public meeting or make written submissions to the Village of Merrickville-Wolford before a decision is made by council will have a right of appeal to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, LPAT. Notwithstanding the recent changes of the Planning Act regarding subdivision appeal rights, public comments are important and valued by council and will be given careful consideration by council in terms of its recommendations and actions. Reports and presentations. So at this time, I will ask the staff to provide confirmation of how the notice of the public meeting was provided and comments received to date. And at this point, I would introduce Simon Forbes, who is our consultant planner from JP2G. Mr. Simon.
Thank you very much.
Please, at the mic would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Forbes Simon. I'm a registered professional planner in the province of Ontario. JP2G is a consulting firm that's been retained by the town to provide planning services and professional recommendations on applications that come before council. I'm here tonight this evening that the notice was given to the public in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. We've also received 2 comments from the general public to date, Mr. Mayor. One is from Robin
Chinquinski, yes.
Yes, thank you. And then the other is from Tara and Patricia Shields, and both of which have made part of the public record. There's also been circulation of the application to the prescribed agencies that we're supposed to give notice to. And those agencies that have provided comments to date include Bell Canada, Canada Post, Enbridge, the Conservation Authority, Trans-Canada Pipeline, the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville, and there have been comments on a technical nature provided from the town to the developer as well, all of which are part of the public record and available for viewing at any time. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. And at this point, I will be asking the applicant to make a presentation. Before I do that, I will, for everybody's edification, representing Parkview this evening, in terms of the presentation, I understand it will be Colleen Ivets and Steve Davidson, perhaps as well. Also in attendance is Tim Cinnamon, Jake Cinnamon, and Ken Shelley. So moving on, as I say, I will ask the applicant to present the planning justification. And I do believe you have you're going to be speaking and have a bit of a PowerPoint presentation as well.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Colleen Ivets again. I'm with
planner with Wolfman Consultants, and I'm an agent for Parkview Homes. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming out tonight. I just want to echo the mayor's comments and say that we really are looking forward to your feedback, and this is a vital part of the planning process under the Planning Act. So thank you so much for coming out. We are here tonight for the Merrickville Grove public meeting and for the applications for plan of subdivision, zoning bylaw amendment, and road closures. So first, I would like to introduce you to the proposed plan of subdivision. So first off, just some brief, quick facts. So the lands are currently vacant open space, and we're proposing to have 70 townhome units and 16 bungalow units for a density of 42 units per net hectare. The plan also includes public rights-of-way, multi-use pathways or walkways, public services, and open space. So here we have our concept plan, and what many of you I hope would have picked up a handout on your way in. So beyond the boundaries of our subdivision, we have servicing through to Colburn to the north, as well as a connection to Sophie Lane to the south. So if we just zoom in a little bit, so you can see the concept plan a little bit better here, hopefully. And right here in the purple, we have our bungalow units highlighted. So all the other units you see are two-story townhome units, and that's all the remaining units. In terms of our timeline to date, just a little background for this application. The pre-application consultation was March of last year, followed by our application submission in November. Recently, we've actually already begun acting on feedback we've received from the municipalities, and so we sent in a revision to our plan just earlier this month, and that also has included the request for road closures. We're looking forward to having more comments to address further feedback from both municipalities as well as yourselves that arises out of tonight's meeting, so it's going to be really important. But looking now a little bit to the planning policies, so just some background, the provincial policy statement, it sets out the kind of policy-led planning framework for the province. And what they really want to see is efficient development patterns, a balance of housing, open space, transportation, and employment, and that they really want new development to be focused in designated growth areas. They want also municipalities to focus on offering compact, a mix of housing types and densities, and to meet the needs of both current and future residents. Looking to the county's official plan, they have outlined the lands as part of the urban settlement area, which permits a mix of housing types again and a range of densities and tenures. The OP also looks to the local village OP for further details. So here we have a map of the village OP, and so the lands are highlighted here. Their designated land use is residential. So in addition to that, they're also within the influence area of a waste disposal site and within the wellhead protection area B. That said, a full range of dwelling types as well as open space is permitted in this designation, although a zoning bylaw amendment, or ZBA, is also required for high-density development. And as that's defined by the local OP, is 35 to 60 units per hectare. So we're coming in right now at 42, so we fall into that classification. And next here we have the village's zoning bylaw currently with the land in question highlighted. So the lands are currently zoned development and residential type 1. And, but as we previously mentioned, we've put forth an application for a zoning bylaw amendment. So here we have our concept plan, very similar to what's in front of you, and it has the current zoning overlay. So you can see here the lands to be rezoned outlined in red, and that they're mostly development with one patch of R1 zoning. So the first step in our rezoning is for our proposed open space zones. So they're shown here in green, and within these green spaces we have our stormwater management block as well as our parkland blocks. You can see those here. Hopefully everyone can see the slides clearly. And after that, our next step is for the proposed residential 2 exception zoning. So that's shown here in yellow. And this is where our townhomes and bungalows are going to be. And lastly, we have our rezoning for our proposed residential 3 exception holding zone, and that's shown here in orange. And that's for our potential apartment block, but it could also be for anything, any of the other land uses that are falling within the permitted uses of that. So it could be a single detached, it could be more towns, or we're also requesting the R3 for the potential apartment dwelling. So collectively, this map here shows our complete proposed zoning for the lands, and this is also the same image that's on your handouts. But we want to look a little bit closer at the zoning details more specifically. So we're looking for the standard open space or O zoning, which is required to permit the parkland and stormwater management facility uses. Looking to the R2 zoning, it's required to permit the townhouse and bungalow as permitted uses in the zone. The exception, or the X, is required to permit the high-density development at 42 units per net hectare, as well as to permit a reduced lot area of 155 square meters and a reduced lot frontage of 5.5 meters. And looking to the R3 zoning, it is required to permit the potential apartment dwelling of approximately 15 units. The exception is again required for high-density development, and even with the inclusion of potentially an apartment building, that would only bring it to an upwards of 45 units per net hectare. So we're still within the definition of high-density development. And the holding zone is unique in that it's required to actually prevent development until these lands have frontage on an open public street. So that's why we also don't have the apartment dwelling depicted in our concept plan right now, because it's kind of on the back burner. So we're thinking about it, we're doing the zoning, but we're not putting it forward right now. So as mentioned, we're planning some exceptions to the R2 standards. So this table here, I know it's a lot of information, but the table kind of outlines various standards for the townhouses in the standard R2 zoning, as well as what we're proposing for the R2X. So here we have highlighted the exceptions for lot area and lot frontage. The typical requirement is 180 square meters, and we're proposing 155 for our R2X zoning. And we're going from 6 meters lot frontage to 5.5. However, we're also proposing to have increased space between the end units. So we're going beyond the minimum. We're also proposing to have larger living spaces, and we're proposing a larger percentage of landscaping on site. So now we can move to the R3XH standards. So for here, these are the simple standards that are straight out of the zoning bylaw, and we're proposing to use these regular performance standards, which are outlined here. No exceptions. The X as part of the title is simply because we have to rezone with a special exception for what's considered high-density development. So just to summarize before we kind of move into a Q&A period, we are proposing 70 townhome units, 16 bungalow units, and a potential apartment dwelling. These units will all be on public services with nearby open space and active transportation within the efficient development with great housing mix. Overall, it's our professional planned opinion that these applications represent defensible land use planning and are supported by all of the planning policies. Thank you for your time, and let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Just wait for the lights to come up. So at this time, I will ask members of the public who wish to address council to come forward. Please state your name, You place a residence and then make your presentation. Please remember to direct your comments through the chair, and then we'll sort out who might the best person be to answer your question, should it be a question. If it's a comment, your comment will be captured by our deputy clerk. And the mic and the table is there for the public to utilize.
Good evening.
So if you could state your name and your address, please.
Arlene McKibben, 805A St. Lawrence Street, here in Merrickville.
Thank you.
Enough?
Absolutely.
I've always been interested in the design and the use of the buildings, but I'm particularly speaking now for the people that I know have come here because they wanted to live here in retirement. And I'm the first person that I know of that bought a single house here in Merrickville and converted it into a duplex, making the main floor level completely wheelchair accessible. And I'm thinking, when you're designing bungalows, would you consider initially not putting stairs in, but putting in ramp area? It's not going to bother anybody young enough who don't care, but it's already done in advance. So if the other thing I would like you to consider is, if people come here to Merrickville and want to live here with their retirement in mind, I'm seeing so many have to leave Merrickville to find a place where they could, both of the couple, where they can manage no stairs, no steps, and no swinging doors. We've had people go to Perth and Manotick and Ottawa and various places. But if people want to retire here, they don't want to leave. They want to stay as long as possible. The other thing that I would suggest, and it's not going to cost a lot more, is that in planning the bungalows, you might consider putting sliding doors instead of swinging doors with enough width space so you can get around with a walker or with a wheelchair. And I did that on all my area on the main floor. Took out the swinging doors, put in the sliding doors. So those two things have made a tremendous difference in the later part of my life. Ramps or space for pushing around your wheelchair. But on the outside of the buildings, I look at the plans of the bungalows. It would be just as easy to put a ramp or a sloped entrance into those houses at the beginning stages than have a couple come to live there and then have to tear that all up and 10 years later change it all. That's basically, I'm speaking for seniors and people who like to stay in Merrickville, if they need a ramp or they need sliding doors or they need accessibility.
Thank you very much. As I said at the beginning, it's an opportunity for questions and or comments. And I noticed over with the applicant, they're taking notes of your comments. I'm not sure if you wanted to make any comment at this point, but you've been capturing the comments. And I think there is a comment going to be made. It might be easier if you came to the microphone or speak very loudly so everyone can hear, whichever is most convenient.
Can you hear me from here? When we first started to look at this development, when we talked to people in town, we realized that they wanted
It would be advantageous to use the mic because not only some of us would prefer not stairs, and not everybody can hear as well as we used to. Thank you.
When we looked at this development, when we first were planning it with a two-story, we actually were talking to some of the residents in town, including the resident society people, and we realized that there was a pressing need for senior accommodation. So that is why we changed our planning, and we included 16 single-level bungalow townhouses for that purpose totally. Because the whole idea of what we're trying to do is to make an age-in-place development. You can start with a family, and when you get older, you don't need a two-story home anymore. You have a smaller home, it's a bungalow style. And at the end of the day, when maybe even that's too much. We thought of the apartment building with vertical transportation would be a way that someone could actually live in place right until their old age in the community. Because we're not just building a house, we're trying to build a community that works, which is why you saw the parkland. You said, okay, we put the seniors housing near the parkland so they can go out and have a healthy lifestyle. We tried to really think of what are the things that would be important to you? Walking paths. We tried to incorporate all this into this development, into this new community that's coming to this town. It's a lovely town, we agree. I hope you took the opportunity to grab one of the brochures about our design. We took a lot of time for our designer to go through town, take pictures, say what can we integrate any of this historical fabric into the actual looking, what they look like. And I think we've come up with some pretty nice planning ideas because of that. But we agree wholeheartedly. The bungalow towns and Tim's our construction guy. Is there anything, is it Arlene?
Yes.
Is there anything Arlene has said that could not be accomplished? No? Okay. So would that be, if someone was interested, is it something we could incorporate right at the beginning of a bill?
Yeah, I think that's easily done at the start of the bill. Over the course of many years, we call ourselves a semi-custom builder where we actually meet with every client when they come in and start, and there's many different changes people want to see done to various homes and a rent, and one of them sliding doors or pocket doors or all that kind of thing. And we try to incorporate those ideas into the house as we build. We built many of these bungalows up in Smith Falls, for example, where we put the ramp in the garage. So maybe it's not so apparent in the front of the house, or some don't like the ramp coming across the yard, so you incorporate it into the garage where it's not seen moving the vehicle and straight up the ramp, so you're not fighting with the snow and next to. So definitely some great ideas, and we certainly know that's
And the lid to the doors.
inside. And how that?
Okay, thank you.
Would that be extra?
Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I think the bigger doors, there's not a extra cost for those. The ramps, they're made depending on the complexity of the ramp. For us, maybe cost for sure.
And I think there were some others that wanted to ask a question, yeah, or a comment. And again, I ask you to state your name and address, please, Nick.
My name is Nick Previsich. I reside at 517 Elgin Street in Merrickville.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank the municipality and the United Counties of Leeds Granville for the opportunity to comment on the proposal of parking homes and for the plan subdivision. I'd like to preface my remarks by stating that I think
Can't hear you. Sorry.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'd like to preface my remarks by stating that I think I'm similar to other residents in Merrickville and Beaufort with respect to development. I am not opposed to development, but I am concerned by development that is overly dense and does not take into consideration the unique cultural and heritage characteristics of the community within which it plans to place the development. While I understand that the proposed 86 townhome units plus the additional 15 units in the apartment building, should that be built, falls short of the density maximum of 60 units per hectare, it is still an incredibly large number of units on a small site in an area of town that is essentially part of the core of our community. And this raises a number of questions. Is the existing sewage and water service capacity capable of absorbing another 200 to 300 residents? What analysis has been done in this regard? Will there be a net reduction in water and sewage fees to existing residents? Or will we all be asked to pay more for accommodating an increase of somewhere between 20 to 30% of the population in the village of Merrickville. Mr. Mayor, you were quoted in the December 4th edition of the Merrickville Times and stated that residents might see a decrease in their water rates. Likewise, comments have been made that residents of Merrickville-Wolford might see a decrease in their property taxes. Has there, therefore, been an analysis by the municipality that this is both a possibility? With respect to traffic, it is anticipated that the newly created 101 units will also correspond to at least one, possibly 2 cars per household. Can we really accommodate that many more cars on our streets? What analysis has been done to assess the traffic, the social, the environmental impacts of so many additional cars? Similarly, what are the impacts on our recreational facilities, our health center, and our library services? With respect to the proposed building units themselves, they seem to be a carbon copy of the same type of townhouse development that Parkview has installed in communities such as Almont, Smiths Falls, and other nearby communities. What attempts have been made to truly respect the architectural characteristics of Merrickville? I understand that there is quite a litany of different bits of brick and tin, a little bit of stone here or there has been offered as a solution. But is that really still the case, and is that really what we want? In the presentation that Parkview Homes made to Council on November the 25th, the PowerPoint presentation proudly pointed out that Merrickville has been proactive because they have not burdened the new homes with development charges in order to promote growth. Given this incredible, magnanimous gesture and decision on the part of Council and the municipality, what will be the cost of these homes in Merrickville? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Apparently this one was made for me. Mayor?
Could you state your name and address, please, for the record? Thank you so much.
Scott Parker, 718 St. Lawrence Street.
Thank you.
My wife Patty's here tonight. Mayor and council members, first off, I'd like to just find out why my letter of February 25th was not announced tonight. I sent it to Randy Wilkinson and other council members.
A letter that he had sent February 25th to Randy Wilkinson and several councilors. It wasn't noted by the planner, so we'll have to
Do you know where that is in the process?
I'll have to look for it.
We're going to ask you for you, not sure in terms of where it went in terms of being received by the municipality and brought to the attention of the planner. Certainly, if you have sent a letter, and they would always be date stamped when they open the mail, as it were, unless it's sent by email. So that will be part of the formal record. And our consultant planner is nodding his head saying, yes, it will be.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to be clear, we welcome growth in Merrickville. However, we have concerns about opening Wallace Street. Opening Wallace Street could have structural implications, excuse my throat's right, on our historic 1900s home that is built on a stone foundation with plaster and lath walls. For example, rock breaking, impact, pile driving, driving with track equipment, use of vibratory compactors are known to produce vibrations, which can cause damage to homes. The full extent of any vibration damage may not become clear until many months after completion of the road, sewers, or subdivision. My wife and I have retained an engineer, a reality capture expert, and, of course, our attorney. Last Wednesday, they recorded and documented all aspects of our foundation and house. The purpose of the site visit was to establish a baseline condition in order to ensure our house is not impacted by construction activities related to a new subdivision. During construction, whether it be the road or the subdivision, periodic site visits and additional 3D scans will be conducted in order to monitor movement and damage that may be attributed to the construction of a new subdivision and roads. We are confident that the village of Merrickville-Wolford would want to work with homeowners to ensure that there is no damage done to existing properties. As a respected developer, we're sure Parkview will understand our concerns and put forth a plan of how they will proceed if there are damages. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you wanted to make a comment or let that rest as a comment from the resident, and we'll take it as a comment received. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Ron Eagle. I live at 912 St. Lawrence Street, Merrickville. And my only concern, I think it's a great idea, the subdivision, hope it goes through. The only concern I might have is the road lapses. St. Hubert Street, or St. Hubert Street and Alice Street. They surround our property, so it was mentioned that there might be some road closures. So I just wanted to make a note that if there's some closures, I think the walking paths are a great idea. I just don't want to have any property landlocked, that's all. So that's my only concern.
Thank you. Did you want to comment?
Well, Herbert Street is one road that may have a walking path. There's a couple lots on our property that's of concern. And then one question we have as well is Alice Street. I guess it will remain unopened technically for now. We have a project that we're working on our property. We have to get these done as well. And we're just going to confirm later on that any changes to the road setbacks that we're not too close to the line. So at some point, I guess I'll talk to Randy and partners as far as road setback.
Thank you. And maybe a response to your question or your comment?
Hi there, Ron. Thank you for your comment. So Herbert, we're not proposing to close it. We're just not fully opening it as a built road. However, it will have a MUP or a multi-use pathway. So it's not prohibiting it from being fully open in the future. We're just choosing not to fully build it out as a road at this time. But it'll have access to be able to have the parkland have maintenance and have EMS be able to access it and things like that. It just won't be fully built out as a road. Yep. In terms of Alice, it'll remain unopened, but by no means is it going to be closed.
Thank you very much. Philip, are you?
Thank you. Yes. Hello.
Dear Mr. Mayor and Town Council, my name is Charles Goyette. I recently moved here with my wife from Ottawa here.
Did you catch that? Just for the, unfortunately, we couldn't hear you very well, so if you could repeat your name and address, please. And could you repeat your name and address, and you're addressing council, please.
Okay,
Thank
Council.
you.
My name is Charles Goyette. I'm here with my wife, Sheila. We live at 119 Sophie Lane. We recently moved here from Ottawa, and I have a concern primarily to do with the apartment building, the potential apartment building, because I moved from Ottawa and we wanted to live in an area where multi-story buildings would not be in our neighborhood. We moved here and we're finding out that there's a potential, and that potential is my question. How do we go about how will this go, the approval process? We're seeing potential today. Does that mean there's a subsequent approval, or is it required to build the apartment building, or is it just going to go? How's it going to happen?
And I think a consultant planner can speak to that at this point, so we'll get a response for you right now. Thank you for the question.
Okay, you're welcome.
That's a very good question. Thank you very much. There's one thing that's being done with the zoning on the proposed apartment block, and that's a holding symbol. And my colleague mentioned that in her presentation. What that means is that the building inspector can't issue a building permit until council removes the holding provision. And typically, that's once council has been presented with a detailed site plan showing what the building, where it's going to be located, the amount of parking, how stormwater is dealt with, the cladding of the building, the height of the building, all those details that you're concerned about, they're dealt with through the site plan, which is another companion process in the Planning Act. And so once council's been presented with all those details, they're satisfied that it's the right building for the neighborhood, they would then lift the holding symbol, and then a building permit would be able to be issued. With site plans, there's usually an agreement that spells out all the terms and conditions, and that's registered on the title of the property. So there are plenty of checks and balances through the process of getting to an apartment building. The first step is the zoning that you're hearing tonight, but it has the holding, which is a protective safety net.
Thank you.
My name is Ella Warner, and I live at 131 Sophie Lane.
Thank you.
And I wonder what the need for high-density housing in Merrickville. Is it really necessary? And I understand that affordable housing is necessary, but to live in Merrickville is not inexpensive. And even if I had an affordable home, it doesn't necessarily mean that I can afford to live here, because the taxes are very high, the water, the sewage, we pay every time we turn around, we're paying and paying and paying. And already we have to buy bottled water because we don't like the skanky look of the water that comes out of our tap. And we have a brand new house, so there's no problem with the pipes or whatever, but we still get brown water. And we're told that it's not unhealthy for us. But I also wonder if we have more housing making use of the water system. Is that going to impact negatively on us? And as far as aging in place in Merrickville, it's not all that feasible, because most seniors, as they're living in place, they have to have access to grocery stores and doctors and clinics, and Merrickville just doesn't have it. And we have one grocery store, and it's a lovely little store, but you can't afford to buy all your groceries there, so you have to have a car. So that takes away the affordability of aging in place. And oftentimes when you're aging in place, you no longer can drive a car. And there's no taxi, there's no bus, there's no provision for getting people from the village to appointments for at the hospital or wherever. And I think that having high-density housing isn't the answer for our town, and I think it will destroy the whole jewel of the Rideau to be here, to have this high density. And we've seen just the way that Parkview has clear-cut the whole the lot that they're going to develop. And it just shows that they're in total disregard for the people that are living here. that are in place have paid a lot of money to live here and pay a lot of money in taxes and so on. And I think it's totally disrespectful, the whole way they've gone about this. And to go away and clear cut it even before they have permission to build one house there. And anyway, that's my comments.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments.
Rosita Laterbach, Lewis Street, retired realtor. I'd just like to comment that I find this is an exceptionally sad development with pretty much row housing, whether you call it town housing or bungalows. It's all the same cookie cutter. A real healthy community is a diverse community and a diverse subdivision. This is not Orleans or anything like this. To cram this many houses of the same cookie cutter setting into this cute little village I find it literally appalling. And since I have done my job for 25 years, I know a little bit about real estate, and I honestly and truly believe this is the wrong way to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Economic 119 Cedar Gate Lane. In the recently approved official plan, municipally approved official plan.
Sorry, can't hear you.
You hold the mic.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm all over here. Economic 119 Cedar Gate Lane. In the recently approved official plan, the municipal official plan, there are 3 areas that I believe have not been addressed by this development. The official plan states that the municipality, through appropriate bylaws and agreements, shall ask the developer to replace trees and other vegetation which may be destroyed or removed during the development process. There was a large number of trees that were removed recently going down this property, and I see based on the plans, there appears to be a dozen trees planted in front of these homes, which is a far cry from what was removed. The other area of the official plan states to preserve and enhance the historic streetscape characteristics of the developed urban area. To reflect the other comments presented tonight, this development and the look of this development does not meet this requirement in the official plan. And the third area, which there has been no mention so far, and it states the village will endeavor to achieve an overall minimum affordable housing target of 25% for all new residential developments. The provincial policy statement defines affordable housing. It is based on average income in the area. There is a study that is required for this. I have not seen any of this data anywhere, and I have not seen any information so far being presented that tells us how many of these houses will meet this criteria of affordable housing. My last statement is I'm aware of several comments from the county in regards to this application. I'm not aware of the answers that were provided to the points raised by county. Where can one obtain copies of the answers or how these points were resolved? Is it going to the municipal office where you request in writing? I don't see it available on the website, so if there was some direction as to how we can obtain this information, we would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure our consultant planner may want to comment on the 2 parts. The first section on the OP and the section on county comments, which I think may also include, if I might, any other comments from commenting agencies. You mentioned earlier, Mr. Forbes, the conservation authorities, etc. So over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So all of the comments that have come in are part of the public record. record. They are filed at the municipal office. I'm not sure if there's a way that they can be put online or something like that that's convenient. Certainly, they can be scanned and sent to you. And so a request has been made, and it will be followed up. They're all the information, including the response to those questions, are all a matter of the public record. This is a public process. All that documentation will be available once it's produced. And your best bet would be to work through the deputy clerk with the municipality to make sure you get that. In terms of your comments on the new official plan, they're certainly valid, and those points have been made in one way or another to the developer, and as things progress, there will be answers to your questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you very much for entertaining questions and comments. My name is Mike Venables. I'm here with my wife Elena. I live at 171 County Road 23 in Wolford. With reference to the inspirations pamphlet that was handed out, there are a number of elements that have been identified as characteristics of the village. Gray stone, red brick, point corners, half-mounted windows, dark-colored front doors, which have been incorporated into the design concepts that have been presented in subsequent pages of this document. However, one of the design elements is metal roofs. And from what I can tell, looking at the pictures in the leaflet, it's only the lower roofs that are metal, and the upper roofs appear to be shingles. Now, asphalt shingles don't seem to be lasting as long as they used to. And they're not the most environmentally friendly. In fact, they're environmentally hostile. So why not go the full way and have metal roofs as identified in the inspirations section of this document and incorporate those into the final house. Looking at the last page, it shows the streetscapes. This looks nothing like America.
Right there.
Our first house was in a new subdivision in Canada. This looks like a new subdivision in Canada, where all you see are driveways and garage doors. This is nothing like what we see in Merrickville at all. So I don't know what can be done at this point, but that's a comment. So the first one is question of metal roofs to replace the shingles, and then a comment about the fact that this does not seem to affect what we see when we drive down the streets in Merrickville today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And out of interest, the first part of the roofing, I noticed that the applicants were making notes, so they've captured that. Thank you very much.
My name is Peter Schmidt. I'm here with my wife Donna Ross. We live at 437 County Road 23. Before I start, I just want to thank council and the applicant and their contractors for being here. And I know this is a very lengthy and painful process, so I appreciate everyone's efforts in that account. What I would like to say, to try and abbreviate things here a little bit, is I strongly support some of the concerns that I've heard already tonight, specifically from Mr. Grommet and Mr. Venables, as well as others. And to highlight some of those concerns are the tightness or density of the development that is proposed, the questions, and I'll use the word may as someone else did, how our taxes and water rates and so on may be affected by that. I think we need to be more deliberate about that so that the ratepayers of this community understand what the impact of this development is from that perspective. What I want to really emphasize that's a concern to me is along the lines of what Mr. Venables was saying is that we came here, and I believe many people came here for the reasons of heritage and the design features of this town. And I also believe that that's why we have such a burgeoning tourist trade in this town, is because of the beauty of the buildings. And as Mr. Venable said, this design does not look like Merrickville in any extent. And I was here at one of the early meetings when one of the Parkview members made a description of how she congratulated us on our town's design, listed all the features similar to what Mr. Venables did here, and then proceeded to imply that the development actually met those principles, when in fact the development is simply taking trim features from our lovely town and somehow hoping that we'll believe that their structures will take on the heritage feel of this community. They do not. And so I support building in this town. I support us growing as a community. I do not support the level of densification that the province is specifying. And I do not support suburban buildings that look like the ones in the plan. I support buildings and densification that allow us to continue to grow, but also continue to have our heritage look and feel. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Good evening. My name is Donna Ross. I live in the same place as my husband Peter Schmidt. We live 437 County Road 23. We live in a heritage home built in 1832, a stone home. And as my husband Peter said, we moved here because of heritage, because of what Merrickville is. And we did go to that first meeting, and we saw these inspirational photos. And I go, wow, we are going to have a really nice subdivision. Fantastic. It's not going to be like all those other subdivisions that we have seen over the years, whether it be Newmarket, Oakville, all these ones along the 401 that you're driving, you see them. God, I want to live there. So I was really inspired by these photos, like wonderful. And then I see these. I see what these going to be pretty. And I go, this ain't Merrickville. This is not heritage looking. And certainly what Mike Venable said, the streetscape, it's awful. It's awful. It's like one little sticky tree and pavement and garages for the almighty car. So I get a little bit passionate about this, but I really like Merrickville. I really like our heritage. I really like these old stone houses or brick houses. I do not like a subdivision that is like this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can everybody hear me? Okay. I will be quick. My name is Jesse McPhail. I am a planner with Republic Urbanism. I'm here on behalf of Tara and Patricia Shields of 906 St. Lawrence Street.
Thank you.
For sake of not reiterating quite a few of the points that have already been brought up, the Shields have made quite a few of those items apparent in their submission. I do have three things though that I do want to quickly touch on. So the first would just be the communication and just the public process earlier in the stage of the subdivision and development process. It is a big development, and it's understandable. Working as a planner myself, you want to make sure that all the information is complete and everything before you disseminate it to the public. Completely fair. What we would suggest in the future, if not possible at this stage in this development, is maybe that council reevaluate the current consultation guidelines or standards that they impose on development that are coming in, just to allow the community to have a little bit of a better opportunity at the start of the process to have some feedback and some discussion with the development prior to it moving forward, either at an open house or something a little less formal, just to get that discussion going early. The second item was just to kind of touch quickly again on the tree removal. There weren't any real details as far as I could see, just in terms of plans for revegetating the property or landscaping. This is something I'm sure will be addressed in a subdivision agreement or site plan agreements and the like. And we're really hoping that council does pursue a high standard of landscaping requirements for this development, and in the future potentially consider some landscaping standards that are standard and imposed via bylaw. And then the last item was quickly more specific to the Shields property at 906 St. Lawrence Street. So 906 St. Lawrence Street and 818 St. Lawrence Street both flank the Herbert Street right-of-way. So that's where the pedestrian path is proposed to bisect the properties. Just given the existing width of it was originally surveyed to be a roadway. Given that it's being proposed to be used for a pedestrian path, the Shields, as well as their neighbors, feel that it would be appropriate for council and the municipality to explore options with the developer to reduce that right-of-way width and potentially look at opportunities to introduce screening, landscaping to ensure impacts are minimized on those properties where that pathway is going. So, this could include things like relocating the path to the center line and then potentially reducing the width and transferring the remaining lanes to the adjacent properties. Again, I don't want to reiterate, a lot of the community has kind of touched on what we have in our submission as well. Happy to answer any questions that may come, but thank you for your time. And
Thank you very much. And just to be clear, I believe our consultant planner mentioned that we have formally received those comments by the municipalities from the Jew. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Robin Chiguski. I reside at 818 St. Lawrence Street in Merrickville. Local resident for 45 years and a local realtor for over 20 years. The first question is, which you mentioned.
There you go, just hold it up.
The first question that I would like to ask is, with the submissions to the planner, where do the submissions go to? Where were they addressed? Because I'm aware of one of the council members that haven't seen any of the submissions.
So I can't get the submissions to the planner. Where do they go and where does it get?
Certainly, Mr. Forbes Simon can comment on that.
The comments go to staff. They are part of the public record. They're available to be viewed and copies made upon request.
So there's no action taken with them or announcements about this subject in them at all? I'm not less asking.
I don't understand the question, sir.
The two written submissions that you received,
yes,
stay with staff, but not council members.
No. When there is a report that will go to council on recommendations, all the comments that have been received both from the general public as well as government agencies will be part of that submission, and we'll bring them all together into a report as a dependency so that they can be seen. But they are available to be viewed and copied at any point in time for anybody that wishes.
Online or just upon request?
Upon request at this point in time, but if there is a decision that council wants to make them available online, that's something that we can do.
Request, Chair, that if parking possible, put up the map on the board here so we can explain what I'm talking about.
I think they're going to do that for you.
As mentioned by previous planner that spoke, Herbert Street, my house borders on the Herbert Street opening, which the diagram doesn't seem to have placed my house on the map. Every other house is there. But my house overlaps onto the street, like a lot of the heritage homes in Merrickville that encroach on open road allowances. So also with Mrs. Shields' property, her garage either encroaches or is in within inches of the Herb Street automobile allowance, which means there's no maintenance that can be handled if the width of 40 feet persists with the plan. And you're mentioning with the zoning change of Part or D that can be objected to through county, I guess, for zoning change.
Want to speak to that?
The zoning change is a matter for the local council to decide. The subdivision is a matter for the United Counties to decide. So the zoning amendment is held by council.
So my point is that with the proposed apartment building of 15 units, which is basically 30 to 40 people, and the surrounding area of all the townhouses, there's approximately 100 people coming out in that area where Alice Street is. Now they're going to open up Alice Street and pave it or whatever to their parking lot to the apartment building. Or the apartment building is not built. I'm sure there's one of the other townhouses built. They're not going to be open space there. So why is instead of Herbert Street, why is there not a walking path continued on to Alice Street, to St. Lawrence Street, to handle all of that foot traffic? All these people coming out of there have to either walk around, go down Herbert Street, or go all the way down Sophie Lane, which is already going to be heavily trafficked. So that's my main point of contention with Herbert Street opening up between, again, mine's a heritage building, over 100 years old with a stone foundation. Same issue as with Wall Street houses. One of the points I noticed is that they've already cleared everything, and with the Sophie Lane people that have bought houses, with all the houses along St. Lawrence Street that they've cleared right back to our backyards with no visual area at all. So I propose that the developers take a positive step and either replant 8 to 10 feet cedar trees to give some kind of privacy, especially if it's in the park area or Sophie Lane, which I do deal with selling houses along that lane, and it's just devastating that their backyard now and their deck is right on that line where they've demolished, and there's no area at all. So there's no mention of them putting any trees or anything just on that. And the other subject is that where are these dump trucks for the construction for the next 3 to 5 years going to be going through? Going through Wallace Street, going through Sophie Lane. They're also developing phase 2 of Sophie Lane, which there are going to be 2 exits onto County Road 16, but all that traffic is still going to be routed. If anybody's living there, they're going to be routed to come down on St. Lawrence Street. Well, and I don't know why the consideration of not opening up something onto Wallace Street to relieve the congestion and the traffic down St. Lawrence Street. And I think, check. Yes, I guess that's a bit for me. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
I'm short, but I think we'll do it.
Yeah, we can.
Hi, my name is Lynn Cathcart, and I live with my sister at 131 Sophie Lane. My property and my sister's property backs on that war zone where they came in and just stripped all the trees and everything that was living in there right out. I went to pick my sister-in-law up at the hospital, and we had trees to look at. When I came back, they were down on the ground, which was a 4-hour operation. And because they had already started prior to that doing some slow cutting and whatever behind it. we hadn't noticed how badly it had been devastated, and it does look like a war zone. We've submitted some pictures of the before and after to show what they have done. Parkview maybe does build a good home. I don't know that for a fact, but they haven't taken into consideration any of the neighbors. They've just plowed through without consideration of not only us as neighbors, but the animals that were living there in the middle of the winter. Their homes were destroyed, their food supply was gone, and there's deer, there's rabbits, foxes, there's all kinds of animals that lost their homes, and they're all looking for food now and trying to get inside somewhere. Anyway, my point, I'm going to try and do this if I can. Can I take that off?
Maybe. Might be easier to use the other one, perhaps?
Too late.
I'll try this.
There you go.
My sister and I were so happy to build in our new home in the Jewel of Rito, our forever home. We were so looking forward to a quiet enjoyment of our property, which all landowners are entitled to. Parkview Homes purchased the land behind our home. We didn't know. We asked when we bought the house. We just moved in June, but it took a year to get to where we are, get to that point. So we moved in and immediately realized that someone had not kind of misled us regarding the property behind us and around us. One thing I note too, Parkview hadn't, they didn't seem to care, or there was no regard for the environmental issues which face us all. By cutting down the trees, which are carbon dioxide absorbing little sponges, and they give off oxygen. There's really no point then for us to have a bylaw in force regarding the idling of cars for no more than 2 minutes if we're going to cut down all the trees that help us all. We can't do anything about the trees and everything that was cut down. We cannot. It's done, and I agree. One has the right to do what they want with their own land, provided it conforms with existing bylaws. And I guess that's the point at which we are today. With the increase in housing and population, is there a plan to increase taxes to cover more police, fire, schools, medical facilities? Number 2, traffic flow in the downtown core will increase. At present, one can hardly maneuver around with all the pesky tourists that, oh yeah, I understand, keep the town afloat, because I think we depend on the tourist dollars. With traffic being rerouted by the St. John or somewhere else, how do people get through the town? How are they going to get through town? How are we going to get through the town? All I can see is taxes increase to cover the new infrastructure, new policing, more everything for all these things that I just mentioned. Will water and sewer rates increase? Water source is Welland Area Protected B and is designated vulnerable. That's our water supply at 131 Sophie Lane, and it will be the same for the project. Proposed apartment block 12 will affect us directly the most. How many units? When will they be built? How many floors in 11 meters or 36.09 feet maximum height for the buildings? Are these going to be condos or are they going to be rentals? And to what standard? By proposing to build affordable housing behind my house, it will definitely affect property values in the area, and that will include myself, our own as well. The noise factor is already a problem, not to mention the increase in the number of big trucks and cars in general passing by my front door. because Parkview is already starting to build in front of me. So they'll be in front of me, behind me, and beside me. I object to the proposed rezoning of this land to develop into more housing in the downtown core. My proposal, I think the town should buy the land and make it a big park. I really do. If this project is approved by council, and I mean rubber stamped by council, and it goes ahead as planned by the builder, I think they should have to erect a solid fence now around the project, the entire project, to cover up the unsightly view of the scuff land and the outdoor porta potty of the neighbor's property behind us. Now that the trees are all gone, that is what we see out our back door. The property behind us was not our property, but they just ruined our enthusiasm for stinging. My suggestion also is to replant mature trees now behind the solid permanent fence. I mean the fence be permanent around the whole project. Fence to help block out the noise, act as a wind barrier, and it would be more aesthetically pleasing. I do object to this whole plan, of course. I think it would be in keeping with one of the other ladies who was speaking, if it were heritage homes of some sort instead of high density. I don't think there's any need for it. I think it's just going to cost the taxpayers more money. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your comments.
This is Mike Saverson, 223 Main Street West, Merrickville.
Thank you.
First thing I would like to say is I would like to thank Parkview for coming to Merrickville. I think that bringing more housing to Merrickville is badly needed in this village. There is not enough housing now, and there is definitely not enough affordable housing here. And Parkview's proposal to bring more housing, I agree with a lot of comments been made where I'm concerned about the high density, but I understand the fact that no one today will build a century home anywhere. It's not practical, it's not affordable, it's not possible. So we all might like to have Merrickville recreated as a century village with century subdivisions, but it's not possible. I think we have to realize the fact that we need more population in this village. Already tonight there's been complaints about the fact that they are saying that it's possible the taxes will go up, the water will go up, there will be more cost to fire department and other things like that. But having 86 homes with people, families in those homes who will be paying taxes to the tune of $1 million that we do not have now, I think is essential. We have to have more people. We need more people in this village to keep the schools that we have here. We don't have young families coming here because there's no housing for them now. I'm very happy to see the range of houses that Parkview is planning to put, which includes single-story homes. Those small homes will be excellent for young families and for seniors, which another comment was made tonight. But seniors have nowhere to go. The homes that are in Merrickville now this is a desirable village. People come here because of all of the amenities and the infrastructure we have in place. If there's no homes available, they can't come here. By having more homes, this village will survive and prosper. If we keep looking back at the past and not allowing change, understand people don't like change. And there will always be people who want to live in the past. But I think you have to realize that the future is not the past. That we have to look forward. We have to grow. We have to expand. And I congratulate Parkview, and I thank them for coming.
Well said.
Thank you. So, yes. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Mr. Mayor, councillors, thank you. My name is Colin Herman. I live at 1265 County Road 43 East in Wolford County. Well, I like to think it's county. 40 years ago, I bought a 20-acre lot and built a log home. When I say I built it, I should explain I didn't. I had a professional build it. Every time I build anything, it leans to one side or the other. So I got somebody who knew what they were doing to build it for me. It's 3,800 square feet. There's a triple garage. I have a greenhouse. I have an implement shed. I have all sorts of wonderful stuff. I'm 83. My wife is 83. I can't even shovel the snow down my walkway anymore without getting an angina attack. So aging in place is something that means something to people like me. And if anything, I'm a little disappointed at some of the layout that's proposed here this evening from my viewpoint. But I was looking to this development to find a place that my wife and I could settle for the last few years of our lives in a comfortable setting within Merrickville. I've lived here for 40 years. I like this place. I enjoy this place. The heritage thing that Mike said just then, he's right. It's not possible. You can't go back and build what was built in Victorian times and earlier in some cases around here. It's just not practical. You can't do it. I know people look at the Stepford concept of bungalows that these people are proposing and shudder a little bit because of the cookie cutter aspect of it. But that's an economic fact of life. That's the only way they can afford to build anything these days. So I ask you all to think carefully before you don't support this proposal. I fully support it. I think it's the right thing to do. I don't know if I'll ever live in any of the quality houses they're proposing to build here, but at least it's an opportunity for people like me who are aging in place. As I say to my wife, damn it, I want to stop aging in place, but I can't. It's something I have little or no control over, so please accept this development as part of our future. It's the way it's going to be. Thank you very much.
My name is Pat Watson. I live at 423 Bronx Street East in the village of Merrickville, the village where I hope to die. I came here in 1959, 60 years ago. We came from the city of Ottawa with 5 children, subsequently produced 2 more. We've raised 7 children in this time. As soon as I came to Merrickville, I became very involved in the municipality. I had visited it once several years before, when my husband and I were seeking a house big enough for all our kids. One was offered to us in the village of Merrickville. 4-bedroom brick on 3/4 of an acre, suitable for a nursing home. And I said to my husband, that should suit us just fine. And I was there once. It was a nice little village. Let's go and have a look at it. So we did. We came in under the railway bridge. We bought the house for $7,500. We moved in the next spring, and we've been there. I've been back in the village, and most of my children still live here. Now, let's take a look at reality. I soon became involved, as I say, in the yard, in the village. The first thing I did was go on the school board. And we built a new school. Lots of objections from the people who lived in the village. We don't need a new school. The 2-story, 6-room one we have is just fine, and we can't afford another one anyway. But we did get the new school built. And right now, I can tell you that that school is in danger of having to close, I believe, unless there is development in this village. The block that I live on has 10 houses in it. 5 of them are occupied by one single woman. There are no children. 2 children walk past my door to school each day, and they are 2 of the lovely Syrian refugee children who came here to live. We have to face reality. The current tax base simply cannot sustain the village as it is. One lady feels with more development we're going to need more policing. Our current policing is costing us nearly $500,000 a year. Everything is just over the top. There are no more $7,500 houses in this village. We're looking at something like $750,000 for some of them. I'm not saying that this development might be considered perfect. Maybe we need to be making adjustments to it. But we need to face reality. This village needs development if it's going to survive. Right now, I understand we're at the limit of our loaning, our borrowing power. We're handling a lot of debt, and we need some help. And if it's going to come with development, then I say we better go for it.
Well said.
And I'm 89.
I wish people wouldn't only look at the extreme on one end or the other. What I meant to say before is that it needs diversity. We do need development. We do need more housing. It's been stagnant for way too long. We do need some affordable housing. But I still say that just one mono type of house in there is unhealthy. We need a diversity. We need freestanding single homes. We need semi-detached homes. We need 2 stories, 1 stories, bungalows. We need apartments desperately. If we want young people, we need apartments. So all of this in combination, in my opinion, would be a healthy continuation in Merrickville. People get hung up on outsides. I really don't care, each to their own taste. But we do need development, but we need diversity. It will be not healthy to have such a dense community out there that does not fit our lifestyle here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Nick Purvis, again at 517 Elgin Street. If I could just ask for a point of clarification based on the questions that Mr. Chawinski raised earlier. If you could just explain the questions that people have been posed this evening are now going to go, as I understand, to the municipality and the municipal office in specific. And then what is going to happen? Are the individuals going to get responses to the questions that have been raised that have not been answered yet this evening? And what is the process? Is council going to deliberate after the municipal office amalgamates all of the questions and their analysis And if that's the case, is that going to be open to the public to hear? Or is it going to be another in-camera session where nobody knows what's going on? I just would like to know what the process and the next steps will actually be.
Thank you. Very good question. I was going to get to it at the end of the process this evening. However, I think it's timely for our consultant planner to speak to that in terms of the process and the questions, comments tonight, how that part moves forward as well. So, sir, thank you.
Thank you. Very important question. So typically, the way it's done is written comments get a written response. So if those that have had comments that have been written and submitted, there would be a written response from staff going back to them addressing the comments. Just verbal comments, they will be part of the public record in the minutes, and they will be part of council's deliberation. I believe that the intent at the end of this evening is for council to consider a motion directing staff, including ourselves, to come back with a report highlighting the comments that have been received and how they are being addressed or how they should be addressed. And it's quite possible that there will be continued negotiations with the developer based on the comments this evening. So this is all part of the public record. All these, you're in a very, very public process now. It's not something that goes in camera unless there's legal or land sales or other business components under the Municipal Act. Planning process is open to the public. Reports will be open to the public, and they will be presented in open council.
Thank you.
Written comments.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. There you go. Thank you. So, moving on in our process this evening. Yep, please. Yep. That would be fine. Perhaps just, or you lift them, use the mic, whichever you're comfortable with.
Okay, so Paula Trees, 331 County Road 23, Merrickville. I wanted to make a comment, more structural comment on Wallace Street and the entrance onto St. Lawrence Street. Having occupied 718 St. Lawrence Street, which is this way up right up there.
No, it's not the one, Paul, it's the one in Jason. Right here in the R1.
Where's Wallace? Is it Wallace Street?
Yeah.
So having lived at 718 St. Lawrence Street, and the proposed Wallace Street was at the time my driveway, I can tell you that coming down the hill towards that driveway, traffic comes at a very, very high rate of speed. And a lot of times, it's kind of scary trying to get out of that driveway. Forwards, backwards, I don't care which way you're trying to go. It's very difficult to get out of there. If St. John Street was lengthened and the entrance to Merrickville Road was on Bruce Street, one block further down, which is actually a through street, so it would mean that people could come down Bruce, drive past the glass blowers right into Merrickville Road and then around St. John Street. It would be much safer for anybody using St. Lawrence Street or coming in and out of Merrickville Road. And because there's going to be such a significant population there, there'll be a lot of to and from. And this will be a busy intersection I'm talking about, a very busy intersection. And I think that Wallace Street will propose problems both for pedestrians, kids who will try and cross there to get to school, and for traffic alike. if we move down to Bruce Street and we have the straight through, we get rid of a lot of this turning left and right onto St. Lawrence. And perhaps we might actually look at what traffic control and install a stop sign at that intersection for the left of the street. The other thing that happens when you use Wallace Street, there are actually more lots. We can't see them, but there are actually more lots off to the left. Off to the left of Bruce Street, which would essentially become landlocked if St. Lawrence Street is blocked off. And these landlocked lots, which I thought we weren't allowed to create landlocked lots, that was part of both the county planning and the municipal planning.
Can't hear you.
The landlocked, these lots would become essentially landlocked in behind the other houses further down on St. Lawrence Street. If you can't get to them with St. John, once Bruce Street is cut off, there's no way into them. And I believe that would be counter to both the county planning and the municipal planning in creating landlocked parcels of land. So that was my comment. It's just about the nature of Wall Street and the potential of Bruce Street, creating sort of maybe a safer pedestrian traffic patterns and opening up more lots to potential development and the recoup of taxes and water bills for the roads.
Stu Hamel from Milford Center. My question is not specific to this development, but maybe one of these people could answer. In this day of environmental concerns and all these new houses and roofs, I wonder why all new houses can't have solar panels.
Thank you.
Oh, yes.
So thank you all very much for your comments, your questions. Moving along the meeting this evening, and I'm just keeping an eye to make sure there isn't anybody that hasn't spoken or wants to. I would ask to my council colleagues, are there any questions or comments this evening? As you all know, we will be coming back to council in the future with reports, but don't want to preclude council if they have any questions this evening. Mr. Malloy.
Yeah, I just had one quick question. Am I okay? I'll stand.
Or speak loudly.
Yeah, sure. One quick question. Again, with Wallace, Herbert, and Alice, your map doesn't show it, but those roads extend on Plan 6 all the way through to Reed Street. So what you've done is you've cut them off and impeded any more development to the west of this area. So you can build more houses, right? Why doesn't Wallace and Herbert, whatever you're going to do with Herbert and Alice, why don't they extend as designed in Plan 6 so that there is a complete option of developing to the west of your development?
You have a question? Thanks.
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor. Just looking at those road closures we proposed, so the lands to the west are, the lot fabric is not well suited to further development. They're currently cul-de-sacs, and those pie-shaped lots that are existing there are not well suited to punching those through, and it would create more through traffic, we believe, as well through the subdivision. And right now, we, as a result, propose to close them and to kind of respect the lot fabric that exists and those abutting neighbors as well.
Thank you.
Just a supplement for that? Yes, but you could go through there, you can go through there and hook up to St. Patrick. And St. Patrick is a fair distance away from Reed, so you're not getting those cul-de-sacs. Plus, I believe those cul-de-sacs are further south on your development. They're not, the cul-de-sacs that you're speaking of are not at the end where Wallace is, or not at the end where Herbert is. They may be at the end where Alice is, but I don't think so. They're further down towards County Road 16. And again, you still have St. Patrick that you could hook up to. And that would get you out at Colbert? I think Colbert.
Correct.
Yeah. Anyway, so.
Thank you. Further comment?
Yeah, just if I may, I don't believe that we're touching St. Patrick in this proposal.
No, that's your point. If you'd extended Wallace, you would be touching St. Patrick. St. Patrick is right just be west of St. John. And if Wallace and Herbert and Alice continued through instead of being truncated, where you've got it truncated, you would run into St. Patrick, which would give you access to that land.
Through the chair, yes, we have proposed to close those roads. We are taking, again, in addition to council's comments, all other comments into consideration, and we'll reflect on those. So we're grateful for all comments tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Cameron.
Yeah, I have many questions, but I'm just going to hold it to one for now, and I'll ask the rest as this develops. I'd like Parkview Homes to take a look at the traffic studies that were performed. I have a problem with this subdivision being so dense because of traffic being dumped onto St. Lawrence. With this proposed development and the continuation of the other development off of Sophie Lane, and with future developments further down County Road 15 with Merrickville Estates Phase 4 and 5, we have a potential of dumping over 500 cars down St. Lawrence. So I think we'd have a severe problem on St. Lawrence. And we've also passed a bylaw routing all truck routes down St. Lawrence. So that proposal goes from 500 to whatever truck traffic we're going to have during the day. I think it would be better suited if we opened Wallace and Alice Streets through to Reed Street to allow that traffic to diversify through the village in a different way rather than dumping everything onto St. Lawrence. And I'd like you to please take a look at that as the discussions go on further. Thank you.
Yeah, further to Councilor Boyd's concerns about street closures, I can understand that Parkview doesn't want to be responsible for putting Wallace, Herbert, and Alice streets through to St. John at any time, but by building houses on those road allowances, it's severely limit what the village can do in the future. We may very well be courted by another developer 20 years from now, and if we have the capacity to extend St. Patrick Street, we will need those side streets to pick up the rest of the lots behind them. So the real concern for me isn't whether or not you're going to develop Wallace Street all the way through to Reed. It's you building houses on the street allowances. So you've already seen what happened when a house was allowed to be built at the end of St. John Street. You can't continue south on St. John Street. You have to run a lane through to run the services up St. John because there was a house right at the corner of St. John and Colbert. So we didn't learn a lesson from that. Allowing you to build on the road allowances would certainly be continuing a mistake, as it were, to limit our future development. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Please, yes. You have a supplementary comment or question?
My question has to do with Wallace Street. Looking at the whole area that's colored yellow, it seems to me that every single home, every single car that lives in that yellow area is going to get in and out through Wallace Street. They're going to come pouring out of there through St. Lawrence. and that's right across the street from my house. I am concerned too, because people come down St. Lawrence Street from the hill, and they are going at a pretty good clip. Everybody that lives in there would have to come in and out through that one turn. But before the development of these even started, all the trucks and all the stuff is going to have to be brought in there on Wallace Street, and goodness knows how long it's going to take to build all those houses. But what I'm thinking of, it's going to be feeding every single thing that goes in and out of this development is going to come up to Wallace Street, up on Wallace Street, come to St. Lawrence, and at that point, you almost want a stoplight so that it can get safely out and away from there. I didn't realize that they were going to only have one entrance and exit. Isn't that a fire hazard? To have, I don't know how many homes there are, 50 or 60 homes, when everything has to come in and out of the same street, and it's still a single street. It doesn't have any wide access or sidewalks or anything. So I think it would be a good idea, looking at St. John Street, to have somehow either have it go all the way out and bring Bruce Streets down, or go on St. John Street until I can get to another street. I'm afraid that right in front of my house there's going to be all kinds of accidents.
Thank you. So, and your name and address, please. Thank you.
Pat Parker, 718 St. Lawrence. I was reviewing the document, and on page 2, I just have a question. It states additionally, 806 St. Lawrence Street is under contract, which, if I understand correctly, Parkview will be or has taken over or purchased it. It says which will allow for the full 16-meter wide row along Wallace Street. So my question is, how are they going to get the 16 meters? Because on the map it has it indicated as a narrow street, or as it narrow. So how are they going to get the 16 meters?
And tear it down? It was just sold this week. You're going to run the road right up to the windows?
You won't be taking mine then.
Thank you very much for your questions and comments. That's the purpose of this evening, is to hear your questions and comments, and the applicant has heard them and making notes, and so has our consultant planner on behalf of the municipality. So as there are no further questions noted, I will move on, and I'll read through part of the balance of the process for this evening. This public meeting is now concluded. Following the public meeting, Council will reconvene its meeting to consider all the facts and comments presented at the public meeting. The meeting is open to the public, and people who have participated in the public meeting are welcome to remain and observe the Council proceedings. However, the Council meeting is not open to comments or questions from the public, and we request that people in attendance refrain from making comments or taking actions that could interrupt or interfere with the Council meeting. Following the deliberations, Council may decide to defer the consideration of the applications to allow for further information or clarification, or may decide to recommend approval of the applications with or without specific terms and condition. The Council may also decide to recommend that the applications be refused, stating the reasons why such action should be taken. Following the meeting, Council will be responsible for making a recommendation to the United Counties, the approval authority for the plans of subdivision, including any conditions Council deems appropriate for the draft plan of subdivision. Council will also be responsible for considering the approval of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment intended to implement the subdivision. So that'll be a decision we'll be doing when we come back to our formal Council meeting right now, some direction. I would like to remind folks, before I close the public meeting part of the planning process, to please sign in at the table over at the entranceway. And now I will ask for a motion to adjourn the public meeting. Thank you. So a mover and a seconder for that, please. Mr. Malloy, seconded by Mr. Foster. Thank you very much. Be it hereby resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Merrickville-Wolford does hereby return to the regular session of the special council meeting. And we are all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Where do I put the time? This one? Just put it in here. We're just not quite finished. I think you might want to just hear the end. It should not take too long now, ladies and gentlemen. Just
from here down.
Read that? Okay. I now declare this public meeting I now declare this public meeting concerning the zoning amendment application and the draft plan of subdivision file 07-T-19003 formally adjourned at 7:55 p.m. Any person that has presented oral comments or questions at this meeting are encouraged to provide their comments in writing to the village office by Friday, March the 13th. Now, members of council, I think as part of the process, we have our consultant planner who's been with us this evening taking notes. He has responded to a couple of questions, but really more from a process point of view. And as was indicated earlier, can provide a report to council at a future meeting to have further discussions and consideration from the applicant. So the motion would be, I'll read it out to you and then we can decide if you want to move it or proceed in a different direction. And the wording would be, the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Merrickville-Wolford does hereby direct staff to bring forward a report to council on recommendations regarding how best to proceed with the consideration of the subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment, as well as an assessment of public comments received. Everybody in agreement with that direction this evening? So if I kind of mover and a seconder for that motion. Thank you, Mr. Foster. Seconded by Mr. Molloy. Be it hereby resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Merrickville-Wolford does hereby direct staff to bring forward a report to council on recommendations regarding how best to proceed with the consideration of the subdivision and the zoning bylaw amendment, as well as an assessment of public comments received. Are we all in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you. And now we do have a confirmatory bylaw for the proceedings this evening, so I'll move her in a seconder, please. Thank you, Mr. Helpney and Mr. Cameron. Be it hereby resolved that bylaw 17-2020, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting of March the 10th, 2020, be read a first and second time, and that bylaw 17-2020 be read a third and final time and passed. We all in favor, members? And the motion is carried. Thank you. And before I put the motion out for members to adjourn the meeting, I want to thank one and all for attending this evening. Appreciate your comments. As was indicated earlier in the proceedings, while under the yeah, that's right. Thank you. I'll find it. If you bear with me one moment. In terms of rights of appeal, which was changed by the provincial government, notwithstanding those changes, and I'll repeat it again, notwithstanding those changes under the Planning Act subdivision appeal rights, public comments are important and valued by council and will be given careful consideration by council in terms of the recommendations and actions that we take in the future. So again, thank you so very much for participating this evening. You should all deserve a round of applause. And now a motion to adjourn, please. Thank you, Mr. Cameron, and seconded by Mr. Malloy. Be it hereby resolved that the special meeting of the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Merrickville-Wolford does now adjourn at 8 p.m. until the next regular meeting of Council on Monday, March the 23rd, 2020 at 7 p.m. or until a call on the mayor is subject to need. All in favor? So carried. Ladies and gentlemen, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.